Ladies and gents, welcome back. We hearing all kinds of things during this inquiry into the Emergencies Act. But one thing that's been interesting and really reigned true on yesterday's testimony, and that was, I had to put it out on Twitter, and that was people on both the left and the right need to realize one thing that we're learning from the Emergencies Act inquiry. If you have a grievance with the government, they will do everything in their power, including usurping new powers, to avoid one thing: talking to you. And I mean, there's only 244 characters on Twitter, and this is a much broader conversation to have. So I decided, well, who better to have this conversation with than none other than lawyer for the Convoy themselves, Eva Chipiuk. Eva, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Clyde.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm really I'm trying to not be angry. I don't want to get riled up like I was when I put this tweet out. But it seems like no matter who and whatever testimony comes in, and it's been an ongoing thing of they have plans to deal with people. They have strategies, they have protocols to deal with people, but nothing that they had in mind ever from day one to the end was talking to people who have a grievance with something that the government's doing. If people are protesting, clearly they have a reason to be there, but that was never, ever, ever once considered.
Correct. And I was feeling the same frustration as you. And to boot, the one item you didn't mention is lack of resources. Oh my gosh, how many times have we heard that? Maybe you didn't need any extra resources if you talk to the protesters, if you talk to your constituents. Talking is free. I've gotten to the same point too, and I have to say that, I'm sitting in the hearing room when these people are testifying, and I'm sitting with this terrorist or this insurrectionist, these people, and I'm like, clearly these people aren't a threat because they're sitting in the same room as you and walking right by you. And yesterday, actually, when Brenda Lucky was leaving the first time and passing by us, I was like, all you had to do was say hi. We were right there the whole time. Here we are right now. We're all human. We're all Canadians. And all it takes is a conversation sometimes. And we just literally lost that opportunity. So we're hearing everything else, all this money spent, all these things, all these departments that we're still not sure what some of them do and how they work together. And I don't think they know how they all work together. But one thing, like you said, nobody talked to anyone.
Yeah, well, we heard that they had trouble talking with each other. They didn't know what the line, who passes it on to who, because that seems to be the trend here is pass it on, pass the buck to the next guy. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my purview to do this. Pass it on to that person. But even from government, we've had all of these all of these accounts, and nobody ever took the consideration to talk to people. Now, they're called our representatives. These bureaucrats are not necessarily representatives, but are elected officials. They're supposed to be representatives. I understand that they have their constituents or their party, the people who they hope to vote for them. But once they're in government, they represent us all. And it's so disheartening to watch department after department come in, police forces, RCMP, from the municipal level all the way up to the federal level. We just have this disdain almost towards the general populace and maybe them having a point of view to put across to them. Now, are there legal avenues to do this? I know people have been trying to file complaints, but what do you do when all else falls apart other than having the Emergencies Act declared on you?
Well, sorry, I don't know if you, which way you meant, what can you do? But I think what this has really proved, at least to me, is Canadians really need to be more involved in their government. They need to really take part and make sure that this doesn't happen again, because it's gone so far that bureaucrats and public servants, and let me remind you the words public servant, they're meant to serve the public, and they've just lost the plot. I think if we look at what their mission statements are or their roles and responsibilities, I said this before about MPs, but it's the same with public servants. Like, I think that they've forgotten who they represent and what they're meant to do, and that's talk to people, talk to constituents, work with constituents.
Well, I think you answered that right there in the what can people do? And well, that's become more active in government. I mean, most people for most of the time, they want to not be able to pay attention, or to be able to not pay attention, to not have to care. And unfortunately, I think we've done that for too long, and that's where we're at now. We all have to become active. The government, in my opinion, has become too large, too powerful. We need to become more active and hopefully shrink the size of government so it becomes irrelevant to most people's lives again in the future. But turning to a particular moment in the inquiry that happened today, and I wanted to get your opinion on this, because this is an interesting one. I know it's hard being a lawyer. You have to just clever wording and verbiage that you have to engage with, but sometimes you just get the answer you were looking for without asking it. And here's a clip. And I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Sorry, I got to get you in here. I'm going to pronounce
Hatem Kerr.
Say that again?
Hatem Kerr.
Hatem Kerr. It's an unusual name from what I'm familiar with, but amazing show here today. And we'll play the link here.
And you were also asked about the ability of border agents to turn away people who are coming for a known unlawful purpose, and they could do that if they knew about that, correct?
Before or after?
Before the emergency measures were.
Well, it wasn't an unlawful protest at that point in time, before the Emergencies Act, right?
Right.
right. And that was the answer we've been looking for since the beginning of the inquiry. And here we are. We got that finally. We got that straight up. We've heard from so many other people where they leave it kind of vague. They'll say that it wasn't. They didn't feel that there was a threat. But now we found out point blank it was not unlawful until the Emergencies Act was declared. Now, is that the stance the government's taking in this inquiry?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying is departments aren't talking to each other, and it's so obvious. And the last witness before this morning was Global Affairs. And this was a line of questioning Brendan Miller had, because the representative for Global Affairs was talking about how the dignitaries, they had to be careful because they have an obligation to take care of them in Ottawa. And there were so many illegal activities happening. And so Brendan pressed her on it, and he was like, what illegal activities are you talking about? And she says, I don't know. Somebody else would be better suited to answer that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
If we're yeah, totally unbelievable. Like, you're the figurehead of Global Affairs, at least for the purposes of the inquiry. At a minimum, you should inform yourself of what it is that you're suggesting to the public and to the commission is illegal. For you to say, that wasn't my department, ask somebody else, that's just irresponsible and should not be accepted. And so you get that kind of testimony from literally the witness before, the department before. Then you go back to some of the people that we had before, and it was the Councillor Fleury, for example. He was upset because he said, I kept asking all the police authorities and they couldn't tell me when it was illegal or what was illegal. And I'm like, yeah, that's been the problem, because it seems like it was made up. Like, I've still been asking what was illegal and when was it illegal? And for today, the CBSA agent, and I don't think he's the right person to make the call, but honest, I totally agree. And I don't agree that after the Emergencies Acts, what became illegal? We still don't have clarity about that. It is crazy. And one department has a different idea than the other department.
Yeah, and people at the protest, I remember hearing this, we're saying to each other, well, don't worry, as long as we're not doing anything illegal, then we have nothing to worry about. But then things that were lawful became unlawful, and it's people are still not clear on it. And I don't think, yeah, we just haven't gotten to the bottom of it, and hopefully we end up getting to the bottom of it. But until then, I want to thank you, Eva, for coming in. And as always, we'll make sure we have all your links to all your social medias in the description down below.
My pleasure. So happy to be on.
Cheers. And thank you guys for joining in again for another update on this inquiry. I'll keep trying to bring more of this news to you guys as things progress. It's just it's difficult to listen to this inquiry over and over all day long. It's very monotonous, very grueling, but we're doing what we can here to bring you guys as much information on it as possible. But anyway, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trekking.